The Seattle Mariners finish up their series versus the Minnesota Twins today. We're going to be releasing this before the game for a very special reason that I talk about here in just a second. Then we're going to talk about the Texas Rangers series, a bit of a weird little mashup we got going on here. The format that we're going with is not the usual one. And then we're going to talk about the MLB Draft. Who do we think the Mariners should take at pick 3? That's going to be the bulk of this episode. So make sure to stay tuned in for that. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 203 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. And this is the Kyle episode of the podcast. Both Kyle Jones, it's his birthday today that we're recording this. Happy birthday, Kyle. And Kyle that you met at work.
My first time being recognized at work by not a coworker, if that makes sense. Shout out Kyle. Said hi, introduced yourself. I took your order. Hopefully your drinks were good. It took a little while to get out because we were training that day, but it was nice to meet you. Feel free to stop in anytime. It was weird, man. It's a weird experience.
Yeah. Because you're not in that mode.
No, literally. I was like, I took his order. Like it was very normal. And then he doubled back and like, do you make Mar-? I'm like, oh my God, I do. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very weird, but very, very cool happening. Similar to the possibility of the Mariners winning this series versus the Minnesota Twins. What a transition. They won game 1, 11-2, an absolute rout of the Twins. We saw Cal Raleigh hit himself another home run. Dominic Canzone hit a home run. Julio hit a home run in this game.
You're not just going to leave out Luke Raley.
Oh, Luke Raley hit a home run in this game. I couldn't remember. There's so much happened. The Mariners won this game 11-2 behind a pretty strong pitching performance from Bryan Woo. He did give up 2 runs on back-to-back home runs there in the 5th or the 6th.
I think it was the 5th.
Yeah. And but other than that, really no harm, no foul versus Woo in this game. Yeah, good game all around.
It's easy to go out there and shove for your team when the offense does put on a lot of runs for you. And this, I think, was a good telltale sign that maybe the Cubs series wasn't a fully, like a fake offensive performance. Like they can go into Minnesota and they can also continue to drop 10 plus runs a game. It's not entirely sustainable, and I think we all know that. They're not going to score over 10 runs a game, consecutive. Like, that's just not feasible. It's not a realistic outcome, especially in the game of baseball. If this was football, that's definitely the expectation. But unfortunately, they're not the Seattle Seahawks, and you do not get 6 points. Whoa.
Whoa.
For, one iteration of scoring, if you will.
It's got way too meta. Let's talk about game 2.
Because it was a 6-5 victory. A 5-run,
second? Well, we can literally click on it.
5-run second inning? Yes. Third inning. 5-run third inning. Luis Castillo on the mound in this one. And I think the first 2 innings were okay. But after that, it kind of started losing some of the command and just wasn't as sharp. Only goes 5 innings. Does give up 7 hits. Because the bottom of the 4th inning, he gave the lead back to Minnesota. And
it's a tie game, but yeah.
Gave up the lead. Not gave the lead back. Gave up the lead to Minnesota, making it a tie game from the 5th on. Mariners bullpen had to cover 4 innings in this one, and they did a damn good job. Gabe Spark, Carlos Vargas, Andres Munoz in the 8th inning. Dan Wilson masterclass, maybe?
Proud of him.
And then Matt Brash to finish out the 9th because scrappy, good Mariners offense got a run off of Duran in the top of the 9th, walked someone, I think hit a batter as well. Julio hit a sac fly. Was that the go-ahead run?
That was the go-ahead run, yeah.
And 6-5 would be the final line, and the Mariners would secure the series, overall series on the season against the Twins, should there be a tiebreaker at the end of the year between them for whatever reason. Mariners will hold that. They need to win one more game to secure a series dub. Is there anything you'd like to say about game 2?
Just from the first 2 games, Julio, he pulled the ball in the air twice in the first game with a home run and a double, and then he got the job done when he needed to, with the bases loaded.
And I think they were both sac flies for Julio in that second game. So good first 2 games from him. would that continue in the third game? I mean, he went 1 for 3.
Yeah, he got a hit.
He got a hit. Only 3 hits for the Mariners in game 3 opposite Joe Ryan. A little bit of inclement weather, some rainfall, maybe hampering the Mariners offense this one. That's the copium I'll go with, because they did not look like the same team that we'd watched play the last 5 games. And obviously going up against Joe Ryan is a pretty tough matchup, but only 3 hits. You're not going to win many baseball games when you only muster up that much offense. George Kirby pitched well in this one, 6 innings. Unfortunately did give up the lead on a Trevor Larnach base hit. Byron Buxton on second base. So that was kind of ball game there, especially with how the Mariners offense was looking in this one.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have games like this. You're going to run into the buzzsaw of Joe Ryan. It's going to happen once in a while. I don't think this is indicative of the Mariners offense overall. It's just simply the way today, it was a rough day all around, having to face Joe Ryan after it just poured rain for like 6 hours. I think they said they got like 3.5 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain.
That's like way too much rain. I think like 1 inch. It's like fine.
Yeah, 1 inch is more than enough. Yeah, 3 hits from the Mariners in this one, all they could muster. The bullpen was okay for the Mariners. I mean,
Bizardo.
he gave up that 1 home run. Trent
Cody
Thornton
Clemens.
came in. Yeah, son of a steroid user. Trent Thornton came in, struck out 1 in this game as well. Mariners couldn't get to Durant at the end of the game like they did the day before. Griffin Jacks, Louis Varland. I mean, just a great pitching performance all the way around from the Twins. The Mariners look to wrap up this series with a series win with Emerson Hancock on the mound against Simeon Woods Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
That game will be in a couple hours from when we post this. So, yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. Any expectations for that game?
I think this one will be more like game 2. I don't know if I necessarily expect an 11-run output, and I think both teams will score more than 4 runs in this game, given Hancock and Woods Richardson are both contact-heavy guys, both with ERAs above, I think. Are they both above 5, or is Hancock below 5? Doesn't matter.
Probably not after his last start.
We know that this was the matchup that you could win it, but it's not guaranteed to be a pretty game by any means. We got some questions on stream about what to expect for the lineup. I would fully expect a Cal Raleigh DH day in the finale with Garver putting the gear on, just because 4 straight games in a row catching for Cal, specifically in this series against Minnesota. Did he catch and then Garver DH in the final game against the Cubs? I think that was right. So this would be Cal's 5th day catching in a row.
And no, Garver caught that last game.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, regardless, Cal should get a DH day.
Regardless.
Nice. Some people are saying Cal needs a day off.
Yeah.
I don't think you can afford to give Cal days off.
You can't. You can't. Unfortunately, just with how important he is to this team, DHing could be a day off for him. I don't think he wants a day off either.
Mm-mm.
Like, we saw his performance after his last day off. He was bad the next day, and then he came out and hit 2 home runs the day after that. So just run him into the ground. What do you have to lose?
Well, if that's the case and trends hold true, maybe they try and win the game Thursday against the Twins without Cal with a day off. He sucks in the first game against the Rangers on Friday, but then he'll hit 2 home runs on Saturday. Is that how that math will work? And
Yeah.
he'll propel them to a win on Saturday no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Mariners do face the Rangers in Texas on Friday, starting with Logan Gilbert opposite Nasty Nate Eovaldi. You enlightened me that his ERA is south of 2.
Yeah.
A 1.65. Only a 4-3 record. Has he been healthy the entire year? He's had to miss starts.
I mean, I think he's missed like a start or 2, but overall, I think he's been relatively healthy this year. Nate Eovaldi's just good. He's very good. He is a very, very good pitcher.
He's made 12 starts.
Yeah, 12 starts, has like you said, an ERA south of 2. I mean,
A 1.56. I'm dyslexic.
yeah, I mean, that's you're gonna run into another buzzsaw there, is basically what we're trying to say. You do have Logan Gilbert on the mound in that game, so hopefully that's a good chance for you there. At least you have your best versus their best. But yeah, rough game overall. Game 2, Brian Wu versus Kumar Rocker. The Mariners have seen Rocker quite a bit. I believe he made his debut versus the Mariners a few years back, and I honestly think that the Mariners will fare pretty all right versus Kumar Rocker. You're gonna have the lefties up for most of that game, of course. Brian Wu on the mound, he's been great. He's going to give you 6. So you got to feel good about that. And yeah, I think that's a game that you have to win.
Yeah, the Rangers are currently a game under 500. They do not play on Thursday, so they do have a little bit of an advantage there where they have a day off and then they get to play at home. But we know the Rangers, they're not necessarily the most consistent team offensively. Their pitching's been pretty good, but the offense has been not so great for them. I will say the way that the rotation is lined up for this series, I think definitely it's a good thing for the Mariners. You get Gilbert in game 1, who is your best pitcher. You get Wu in game 2, who has been consistently your best pitcher because Gilbert went on the shelf. Like, that's the main reason why I'd say Wu could also be in that conversation for best pitcher on the Mariners, at least for the starting pitchers. Then you get Castillo, who there's been some ups and downs, but Castillo's pitched well, I think, the majority of the time in 2025. He just needs to avoid the hard contact. He's opposite Jack Leiter. So, yeah, you don't necessarily have the easiest turn through the rotation against Texas either. Like you mentioned, Kumar Rocker, they've seen well. They got to Jack Leiter earlier in this year, I believe. So, but we know that they're highly touted pitching prospects in general. Like, they could come out and have a game, if you will. They could just see what Nate Eovaldi does in the first game and be like, hey, I want to try that. Let me try that. Let's just, pass the baton kind of situation. But the Mariners have the opportunity to do that same exact thing with Gilbert, Wu, Castillo. This should be a very fun series, I think, kind of seeing where both teams kind of stand right now. Mariners are 3 games over 500 as it stands. I said the Rangers are 1 game under. If you can win this series, that puts you, one, with some momentum coming back home against Kansas City, but also gives you another leg up against another division rival.
Which is really important because the Rangers very well could go on a hot streak and put themselves right back into contention here. They're 7.5 back of the Astros right now. Mariners are 5.5 back. I mean, the Astros have been playing very, very good baseball lately. I think they've been the best team in baseball for like a month and a half now.
Awesome.
So that's super cool. Can't say it was it's too shocking. It's just the way nothing has ever gone wrong for that baseball team. True story. There is something coming up, though, that is huge. Massive, even. The Seattle Mariners have the number 3 pick in the draft, which is for the first time since, Zunino? Was he third?
Maybe.
Is that like...
That sounds right.
Yeah. So that's a really big pick for the Mariners, and there's some interesting talent in there. And there's been a lot of talk about where they might go with that number 3 pick, and we both have some thoughts.
You got a notes app.
I have an entire notes app.
Yeah, I think you will kind of lead the conversation here as far as like, I think you've put in a lot more time and care into this specifically, but there's definitely people that I would enjoy at 3 and players that I wouldn't necessarily like rant and rave about, but I'm curious to see where we kind of align and like what we think is important for the team going forward.
Who do you have going number 1?
Cade Anderson, I think, is like a likely number 1 with the Nats. I think could make sense there. The College World Series, pretty influential in that decision.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part is like, there's not, I think, a true definitive one. And this class is more so valuable in the 20 to like 40 range, I would say, as far as like where you might find the talent, the best like talent worth what you're paying for them at that spot. Like, yes, Cade Anderson will probably pitch in the big leagues next year.
Yep.
And very well could be a star on the way. Will he be the next Paul Skeens? I doubt it. Could he be as good as Chase Burns? Maybe. I mean, Burns looked electric in his first start for the Reds, but I think he has a really good shot at going 1, especially with where the Nats kind of find themselves being in their window of contention. I think getting another pitcher to back up Mackenzie Gore at the top of that rotation. You still have Harlan Susana, I think, coming up for them as well. And then a lot of position player talent with James Wood, and you have CJ Abrams, obviously, Dylan Cruz, if he can somehow turn around. I know he's injured right now, but I think that's where they would go to help load up their pitching staff. Do you have someone else at 1?
No, the only other person I could really see going 1 here is Ethan Holiday. I think that there's also been talk about Eli Willits at 1 as well. Another shortstop, 17-year-old out of Oklahoma. But I think that it's either going to be Anderson or Holiday. Cade Anderson, I know for a fact, will not make it past the second pick.
Yeah.
If he is available, the Angels will absolutely take him. They suck at pitching development, so why not get the most polished guy?
Yeah.
You know, and that is Cade Anderson. When it comes to those two picks, that's who I fully expect them to take. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think we've talked about it a little bit. Through a lot of the mock drafts that I've seen, there was someone saying Jamie Arnold for the Mariners, and then a couple people saying Ava Arquette for the Mariners, 21-year-old shortstop out of Oregon State. I don't personally agree with that. I think that he is the most likely position player for the Mariners to get, but I don't think they're going to go position player at the top of this draft.
So a lot of my opinion, I think, has been influenced by listening to Locked On Talk with Joe Doyle today. Is like where I think a lot of my, I guess, the forming of my thoughts will kind of derive from. Hearing from Doyle specifically say that the Mariners, and I think a lot of teams in this draft, are trying to find the best bang for their buck for the money at the spot where they're drafting. If the Mariners go under slot at 3, I think is where you could run into like maybe some confusion about what is the best spot for them, or like best player to pick for them, and then they go over slot at 35. I wouldn't hate Ava Arquette. I think that opens a lot of doors for trade avenues, where you probably don't feel bad. They shouldn't feel bad, regardless of this, if they trade like a Michael Arroyo at the deadline, who has a great hit tool, and I think that's where Ava Arquette's main I guess like tool lies in his he's a polished hitter at the college level. Obviously Oregon State, there's a little bit of like a home, not like homegrown, but like close to home. I mean, there's some value in that. But if they trade Arroyo, or they feel comfortable, like if they draft Arquette, they could feel comfortable trading some of the middle infield prospects they currently already possess in their farm system. I don't think they will trade Colt Emerson. I don't think that they'd trade. I could see them maybe moving Feldman. Yeah. Just on the idea that they will get Arquette and he'll be more close to MLB ready anyways. And you'll figure out shortstop in 2-3 years at that point later, or if Arquette even sticks at short. I wouldn't hate it. It's not what I want them to do. I would rather them go pitcher. I think pitcher makes a lot more sense for where I'm at with the team. If they would take a shortstop, I would want Eli Willits at that spot if they're able to. But I know that gets a little confusing because he's prep. He's prep, and it's not necessarily where it's hard because the Mariners haven't been in this position, and I haven't seen this specific scouting department and I guess like draft strategy, like however they've been working on the draft, develop, trade, whatever mantra. I have not seen them work under these constraints. So I don't know if I have as good of a pulse as where I would have assumed. Because last year we all thought, oh, like Trey Savage makes sense for where the Mariners were picking. But pitcher made sense. And you mentioned Senja by name months earlier as like a guy that you could see them taking there. With what was it, 19?
Something like that.
Something like that. Like the late teens, early 20s, doesn't matter. With this one, I would prefer Arnold or Doyle over taking Arquette or Willits.
Same.
I don't know if they'd go prep with Seth Hernandez if he's there. And I think the hard part there is you'd have to get him... You'd have to give him a big signing bonus. Like the idea of them wanting to maybe go undervalue at the...
He's committed to Vandy, right?
Yeah. Going under slot a little bit at the 3rd overall pick. That's not what you're doing if you draft Seth Hernandez.
Yeah.
Because you have to give him a big signing bonus to incentivize him to, 1, come to Seattle, 2, skip Vanderbilt, but also like you're going to have to develop him similarly to what you're doing with Ryan Sloan, which Ryan Sloan's been great. It's looking like a steal from what they got for like when they drafted him last year. It's just what fits this team better right now is getting a pitcher that can pitch for you in 2026 at the earliest and then 2027 at the latest.
That's kind of where my head's at with this draft, because when I really look at the position the Mariners are in, they should anyway want to fill the spot that's going to be vacated by like a Luis Castillo or George Kirby when they come to the end of their contracts. You could literally get one of these guys in If Anderson's there, absolutely take Anderson. I don't think he will be.
He's not falling to 30.
No.
Yeah.
But if Jamie Arnold's there, if Liam Doyle's there, I think you go with one of them. Another one that I had down here was Kyson Witherspoon. Okay. He's right-handed pitcher out of Oklahoma. And what did I write about Witherspoon here? Let's see. I said Kyson Witherspoon could be a sleeper at 3. He's a right-handed with a fantastic fastball, but his off-speed offerings have yet to develop. He could really thrive with the Mariners development staff. If he can maintain his command, he profiles as a frontline arm or a frontline starter or a back end of the bullpen arm. So he's a little bit more of a project for the Mariners to take on, whereas someone like Cade Anderson or Jamie Arnold's maybe a bit more polished. But I think that Kyson Witherspoon could have a very, very high ceiling. I think the person with the highest ceiling, in my opinion, arm-wise, is Seth Hernandez. But like you mentioned, you'd have to go way over slot to sign him. And it's going to take a while. I mean, he's only 18 years old.
The timeline for where the Mariners probably need this pitcher that they draft here doesn't line up with Seth Hernandez, unfortunately.
I think they go Jamie Arnold.
If he's there, that's what I would want them to do. And I think he has a chance to be there. Because if we still think that the Nats... Because I'm surprised you mentioned Ethan Holiday going to the Nats. I don't see him going in the top 3.
Yeah, well, he'll definitely go at 4 then.
To Colorado.
To Colorado,
100%.
yeah.
I think that's what makes the most sense. I think the Nats want... I could be very wrong. I don't know if I have a great pulse on it, but I think the Nats getting another player that can fit into their contention window of pretty much now. Like, they want to be competing now, I think.
Yeah.
They should be, because they have a lot of good young talent. It should be a Cade Anderson at 1. And then the Angels, notably, they need MLB ready pitching. We know how they like to draft. They want to draft someone that will be ready to go next year.
Yep.
Zach Neto. Noah
Shonwell.
I almost said Nolan. Weird. Is it? I think it is Nolan.
No, it is Nolan. Yeah, you're right.
It is Nolan. That was weird, though. I wanted to say Noah. I was like, wait, is it Noah? And then obviously Christian Moore just got called up recently. So there's no way the Angels go prep unless they completely deviate from their existing draft strategy that they have done year after year. And getting a guy like Arnold at 2 for them, because I think the hard part is I don't know who they like out of Anderson, Arnold, or like even like Liam Doyle. I don't know who they value the most. Like, if it's Anderson and Arnold that go 1-2, do I want the Mariners to take Liam Doyle? I'm not. I think he's the one I know the least about.
I can tell you that he gave up 17 runs and 22 hits over 3 starts a few weeks ago. I think he's probably going to slide out of the top 10. I think Kyson Witherspoon would be ahead of Liam Doyle.
Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, if Jamie Arnold's there, you take Jamie Arnold. If Cade Anderson's there, you take Cade Anderson. If neither of them are there, that's when things get a little weird.
Yeah.
That's where I could see the Mariners going with Ava Arquette. Or, like you mentioned, going under slot somewhere.
Yeah.
And trying to get somebody at 35 and pay them some overslot money. In terms of the rest of the prep guys here with the shortstop position, Eli Willits, Billy Carlson, and JoJo Parker, and even Steele Hall. Steele Hall's really fast. He has like 80 grade speed.
Is that... I think Marine Lair talked about them.
Yep.
Or talked about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that there's options. Again, referencing Joe Doyle on Locked On, has mentioned JoJo Parker by name as a player that the Mariners really, really like, which would be interesting to me if they pick him at 3. Because he's not falling to 35.
Nope.
So they'd have to grab him there and then go with a more college arm at 35 if they wanted to have someone that could slide in there. But JoJo Parker, again, a lot of the prep shortstops, the one that I know the most about is Eli Willits.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. He could go 1 over Ethan Holiday, in my opinion.
I agree
and I
with
think
that.
That's something that even like Brennan Pinesize was talking to us about on like opening day. Because if you guys don't know Brennan, homie is absolutely locked into prospect and draft develop stuff. I mean, he was at Oregon Super Regionals and stuff like that. Like, or is that what it is technically?
Sure.
Doesn't matter. A lot of the college stuff he's super, super tuned into. But if the Mariners, the thing is, even though I mentioned I don't know how they will operate under these constraints, they haven't missed.
True.
In a draft. And then sure, missed is they haven't necessarily hit either. But from what I can see and the way that the farm system has been developing and the praise that a lot of the players are getting and how fast some of them are rising up through the ranks. Yes, Laz or Arroyo were not drafted. They were signed internationally, but Laz is in Double-A as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, they have a good eye for this. I think Sloan is a good testament to they can find players that maybe are flying under the radar and kind of take advantage of the draft process in that way. The hard part is, if there's a layup at 3, like Jamie Arnold is, in my opinion, and they don't go with him, I will scratch my head.
Yep.
Because it seems like such a layup to grab a college arm in Jamie Arnold, if he's there, who I think has the highest chance of the pitchers that I'd want. I didn't know about Doyle's starts recently.
Yeah, I mean, it was just 3 starts, but still.
Like, there's,
enough to make him slide.
Yeah, there's some validity in that. And Arnold's been a guy that we have talked about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since they got the 3rd overall pick, it's like, oh, that would be nice to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Arnold was on my radar well before Cade Anderson was.
Sure.
So, and I think Cade Anderson kind of surprised a lot of people this year too with just how good he looked. He still has room to fill out too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I think that if I had to pick my top 3 guys to go, because again, assuming that Cade Anderson does not make it.
If Cade Anderson's there at 3 and they don't take him, I'm
assuming
fire everybody.
assuming that Cade Anderson's not there, my top 3 would be Jamie Arnold,
Kyson Witherspoon,
probably Kyson Witherspoon, and then Ava Arquette. Like,
you'd rather them take Arquette than Willits, or are you assuming Willits is gone?
I think I would rather have Arquette because I want someone closer. So the way that I'm looking at it is the Mariners' window of contention is now.
And drafting at 3rd overall, sure, the top end of this draft is not necessarily super loaded like in previous years, or maybe not in previous, just in general. Like, a lot of these guys would probably not be top 5 picks in last year or the previous year's draft,
right?
More than likely. But you want to get someone that can help you within the next 16 months, as opposed to 3 years from now.
Yeah,
I get that.
At the best.
At the 3rd overall pick.
That's kind of where my head's at. And we've talked about, I really do think the Mariners are going to go arm with the 3rd overall pick. We've talked about their draft strategy before. In years past, they started out by drafting a bunch of pitchers. That's where George came from. That's where Logan came from. I mean, even Emerson Hancock.
Yeah, it was Logan, George, Emerson, right?
Yep. And then Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, all those guys were drafted by this team. You know what I mean? And it's like, then they started drafting a bunch of hitters, starting with Cole Young.
Well, no, Ford.
Oh, yeah, Harry Ford, then Cole Young, and then Colt, right? And then obviously that was a big draft for them because they had 3 in the top, 35, yeah.
It was Pete and Farmello in the comp round.
And so they went hitters there, so they kind of filled up on hitters right then and there. And then now they're back to doing pitchers. They went with Sanja last year, Sloan last year. I think at the top end of this draft, they're going to be going for pitchers, and I think that's going to continue at pick 35.
You think they double up?
I think they double up on pitchers again this year. I think there's a few guys that I find interesting in there. I'll see. I don't remember where exactly it starts. Gage Wood is interesting. He's not going to fall that far.
He threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, he threw a no-hitter. He's not going to fall that far. Riley Quick.
Okay.
Is a guy who I could definitely see the Mariners going after at 35. I think that he would be the guy the Mariners would want. He's probably the guy they're targeting at 35.
If he's
available. He has plus stuff, but doesn't miss many bats, and his command is spotty. If anybody can help him reach his frontline potential, it's probably the Mariners.
Sure.
Like, I think if anybody's going to be able to turn Riley Quick into what he can be, it's the Seattle Mariners. JB Middleton is another guy that I think has a decent chance, but I think he has some reliever risk to him.
Okay.
He's a guy that doesn't find the strike zone very well. And then the last guy that I have here is Patrick Forbes, who was dealing with a flexor strain. So I'm not sure if they'd want to, someone who's already having a problem like that. Yeah. I don't know if they'd want to go with someone that has an elbow injury. But Riley Quick, I think, is if the Mariners were to get Jamie Arnold and Riley Quick, I think they would absolutely love the draft.
Okay.
How well they did.
There's some thoughts that I have about where that puts them in, I guess, trade conversations or even willingness to trade prospects. I do want to bring up, because I think Marine Layers talked about him, and then Doyle talked about it today. It was Ike Irish. the angle that Doyle took. So people that don't know, you probably do if you're listening to us talk about prospects. You've probably heard other people talk about prospects as well, or you just like draft like for the draft. Catcher out of Auburn, the best hitter in the SEC this year. Doesn't necessarily grade out super well defensively behind the dish, but the angle that Doyle took was if they draft Ike Irish at 3, because they like the hit tool enough and they feel like they maybe could develop him behind the dish. And if not, he can go play somewhere in the outfield. I think Doyle mentioned that he played third base as well before, that they could feel comfortable trading Harry Ford this trade deadline. And they could fill the void by drafting Ike Irish there and then trade Harry Ford. And then you still have Josh Caron in the system as well, who is, probably a year and a half behind Irish at that point. But if Irish doesn't stick behind the dish, you could use him in spot starts and maybe survive back there. And then when Karen's ready, maybe that's where the backup catcher comes in for Cal. Or maybe at that point, Cal's DHing and Karen is your everyday catcher, if the development works out in that way. But something that Marine Lair talked about with Ike Irish is, I think a lot of his stuff in the Cape Cod League where he's using wood bats, the ground ball rate kind of shot up. And so the metal bat best hitter, maybe it's not translating super well to the wood bats. So maybe there's some risk there, but I just wanted to throw his name out there. I don't know if I would love it at 3.
Yeah.
That feels like an underslot, and also like they're trying to kind of play 4D chess by they draft a catcher, let's trade our catcher who is now MLB ready for a guy that will be MLB ready next year, when it makes more sense when Garver's probably not on your team anymore.
Right.
But it's just an interesting idea. I would prefer them, again, we said it numerous times, I'd want them to go pitcher at 3. I would be kind of surprised if they double up on college arms at 35. I would assume if there's a prep shortstop at 35 available that they like, I think they'd take that player there. But it could flip if they really fall in love with someone over the next 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks at 3 that they know that they're going to get. That completely can change this conversation, and we'll probably talk about it more we'll talk about it at least one more time, where more mock drafts come out and maybe there's more information about where guys are where teams are thinking. And again, if something happens with the Nats and we find out that they really love Eli Willits at 1, you're guaranteed Arnold or Anderson at that point at 3, right? So plenty of stuff can change from now until then.
And that's another thing, like you mentioned, there are a bunch of college arms at around the 35 pick. That around the 35 pick is the money spot for the Mariners. Like honestly, because if they're looking to go arm, there's a treasure trove of them right in there, right around the 30s. So
Forbes, you mentioned.
Yep.
And then Riley. Forbes
JB
is 31.
Middleton.
Riley Quick is 38. You said JB Middleton as well.
Yeah.
He's 41. There will be arms and players that I think that make sense for the Mariners. I think at both spots, which is part of the confusion of where we think they'll go.
Right.
And I do think that this could be the first time where they do 2023 they took Colt, Farmelo, Pete.
Yep.
2024 they took Senja, Sloan. This could be a year where they take one of each, a position player and a pitcher, and I would not be necessarily surprised with how well that they've done in previous years and where the farm system currently sits.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that is one of the reasons why I could see Ava Arquette going 3, simply because the Mariners might feel okay with the guys that are going to be available at 35, because there should be quite a few of them. And the Mariners, if anyone does their homework on something like this, it's definitely the Seattle Mariners. But it's a pretty big pick, honestly, number 3, and I'm super excited about it. I'm also nervous. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, oh God. But yeah, fingers crossed they can come away with Kate Anderson.
Unlikely.
That's going to do it from us here on episode 203 of the Hit It Here podcast. We appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.